This oracle board I call the Hexatetraglyph. We start in the center and we move outward on this branching path that leads us to one of 64 hexagrams of the I Ching. I consider it like a sacred space. By the end of the journey, we see all 78 tarot cards, likely work with all 12 signs in the zodiac and the 7 classical planets. On the final 27th day, we receive a hexagram, and we should be prepared to consult the I Ching, an ancient oracle. If you're not quite sure what I'm talking about, it's probably your first day here. I recommend you go back and watch the first video in the series. I cover a lot of the basics there. This has felt like an initiation to me. I'm learning a lot about tarot. I'm learning a lot about astrology. Mainly, I'm learning about myself. It's not an initiation into any organization or anything like that. It's a path of wisdom. I appreciate you being here with me. Yesterday we worked with Saturn in Aries. We were on position H, which is the second pathway, the lower second pathway. We know our first line of our I Ching hexagram is going to be yin because we completed the first pathway in the down direction, which is yin. So after we complete 6 pathways, we reach an endpoint. Each pathway gives us another line. So the path we walk builds the hexagram that we get. And we're about a third of the way there. So as far as time span goes. Okay, with that said, let's go ahead and draw a couple planets for the day. All right, so we have the moon, which today it's in Gemini, and we have Mercury, which is still in Leo. So yang goes on the right, yin goes on the left. We decide, this is subjective, just a subjective categorizing exercise. I'm going to say the moon is yin and Mercury is yang for today. And now we make a subjective decision on which one has a message for us. Which one would we like to work with? All right, the moon in Gemini. The symbol that comes up for me immediately is the twins, right? Gemini is a constellation of the twins. I think of the twins and I think ego and shadow, or the conscious mind and the unconscious mind, something like that. So we're going to come up with a journal prompt. I'm going to put a few keywords up that relate to Gemini and the moon. And let's go ahead and try to decide what we want to write about today in our journal. Just kind of a general topic or a question, a theme. We'll take a few minutes. I'm gonna put a couple notes down. All right, I think this is very interesting today. Challenging, you know. I'm in a frame of mind now, getting this deep into this process, where everything's beginning to feel challenging. I can tell that this process is only for people who are really willing to put some work in. If you try to do a full 27 days, you may want to quit after a little while. It's made me face my shadow sometimes, and I think today is going to be a bit more of that, most likely, because as what I'm coming up with here is more of like the card spread. Of course, I'll be able to write about it, but let me just read what I came up with here. What caused me to lose contact with part of who I am? In other words, Why have I relegated parts of myself to the shadow? Why have I judged things about who I am as unacceptable, exiled them to the darkness? This has to do with defense mechanisms too, you know. We can split things off. We can repress emotions, memories. You can read, just Google Freudian defense mechanisms. In fact, Anna Freud had a long list of defense mechanisms, and read about those. Think about, why did I develop these defense mechanisms? What caused me to not be able to face parts of myself? It's too painful, or my psyche just can't handle it in a waking state, right? So that's the first part. And you could think of that as the first card that I draw. The second part is, how do I reestablish contact? How can I begin to reestablish contact? How do I create more of a porous membrane between the unconscious and the conscious, the shadow and the ego? How do I allow myself to have communication within? Now, part of what's making me think about this is Gemini is connected to communication, right? So the symbol of the Gemini moon, to me, it's like really deep soul work, where communication needs to happen on a level that's unusual and uncommon. So I'm really glad that I chose the moon in Gemini. That's one of my favorite placements, and I'm learning as I go. Some people will probably disagree with me on what it means, but this is my free association of when I see these things coming together, how do I interpret it? And I saw the moon yesterday as instincts and emotions, the deepest level of who we are. So deep that we, when we're awake, may forget that that's even who we are. This is probably the most Jungian psychoanalytic setup that I've seen so far. And so then the last card, I think, will be something simple. What could I expect from this endeavor? What will be the result, the outcome of doing this kind of work and listening? What might I expect from... I don't even know if that makes sense, but I just want to see if I can start deciphering the message here. So I was told by the cards yesterday to be open to the moon, and I'm attempting to do that right now. I'm attempting. Okay, first card. What caused me to begin losing contact with certain aspects of myself? What in the world? Okay, let me process that for a minute. How do I reestablish contact? And potential outcome. I would say, that's something I could look forward to from doing shadow work, you could say, trying to reintegrate. So I'm talking about shadow work over here, and I get the devil, which is almost just cartoonishly shadow worky. How many times have I received the ace? Is this my fourth ace or third? Have we received 3 or 4 aces? Seems like it always comes up in this position too. All right, so the devil. Let's try to decipher some meaning here. I'm going to try to keep this short. I think I need to spend some time writing today, and I still need to edit and these are big cards. There's so much esoteric occult knowledge with them. We could talk for a long time. So the devil's obviously connected to shadow. It's in the dark. And I would say there's an aspect of torture and punishment. And several times now, I've gotten this. I don't know if I should call it Buddhist. It's my interpretation of Buddhism. I'm not a Buddhist. But I talked about when you cling to something, it actually can cause suffering. It's like your own punishment to just cling. And when I see the chains and then I see the wheel of fortune next to each other, that's where I see like a big change happening, right? Okay, so right now, here in this moment, I would like to be able to be in contact with parts of myself that have been relegated to the shadow. I would like to be able to reestablish so that I could nurture, so that I could listen, so that I can remember and integrate. If you've never watched a story called The Lindworm by Martin Shaw, just look that up and Google it. Just watch that. It's not very long. It's about brothers who are separated at birth. when they meet together again, and the one has lived his life in a terrible state and the other one has been a prince, yeah, that story right there just explains it better than I could ever do. And it gives you some images of why would you want to listen to the fragmented parts of your psyche, because that's how you heal. That's actually how you heal. That's how you become whole. And they're there whether you want to acknowledge them or not. So it's better to know and to try to heal those fragmented offsides and the whole system, not just those, but why they got there in the first place. So then when I look at the Wheel of Fortune, I think there's a lot of freedom in that card to be here in this moment and to also realize that there's a circle that goes down. It's a wheel. What goes down into the underground, what goes down into the underworld, if you take that catabasis, if you take that underworld trip and come back up the other side, things do come to the light again. It's another message about allowing myself to have that freedom of trust, inner trust, trusting the world around me, trusting nature, trusting the unconscious, and kind of having a little boldness in a way where when you feel an urge, when you sense something, when the intuition and the instincts call to you, to have faith. Don't be clinging on. Don't stay chained. Because the true self gets to be experienced in the state of the mind that comes with the Wheel of Fortune. And that is how that reconnection can become established and be made. I think that's how you cut those chains. And yet again, I just have another gift card being bestowed on me. And one thing that just stood out is that on the devil card, the pentagram is upside down on his head, right? So the person and everything is upside down. So you're interpreting the world the wrong way. I believe that I read in a tarot book that having the pentagram upside down means that you're like a slave to your desires. So to turn it back up maybe is an invitation to break free from that. I mean, if you're standing on your head, you can't go anywhere, right? If the pentagram kind of represents our body, and it's turned upside down, it's also a symbol of being contained or stuck. So there's some kind of message of freedom here. It's going to take me quite a bit of working through and interpreting. So I have some research to do tonight, which I'm looking forward to. I also need to do some editing on this video, so for that reason I need to wrap it up. I hope that you found that fascinating. I really called on the moon to do some shadow work with me, and I got the devil. So that is striking, I would say. It was a little, I feel a little off, or like shaken by that, I think. But if you do this journey, you're going to see the devil sooner or later, right? It's going to pop up. But, you know, to call me out on a shadow work spread, that was a little strange. So hopefully you'll see me back here tomorrow. All right, thanks for joining me. I hope this was helpful. Please leave me some feedback, give me a thumbs up, subscribe, you know, all that good stuff. I'd love to hear from anyone who might be watching this, and we'll talk to you soon.